Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. How the heck are you? How are things going? I want to talk to you today about what it's like when we struggle and how can we struggle and still live a full life. You know, the title is Sometimes It's Hard Being Me. And I said this to Brenda, my paddling partner, yesterday. She's like, you should really record an episode about this. So here I am. My intention in this episode is to model that even when you're having periods where you feel meh, or your thinking is more negative or fearful, you can still participate in your life and not let your feelings or your mood dictate. There is this fine balance between when do you need to rest and when do you need to push. It's really a challenge to find what that optimal level of arousal is. And with everything that's going on in the world right now, which I will not be discussing on this episode because it's so much that I can't. But we do need to pull back and we do need to rest and recover. How much is too much or not enough stimulation? It changes. And I really, this is the one thing that I personally have not been able to master. It's something that comes up with many of my clients of how much do we engage. And when you're in that place where you have a lot of energy and you're out and you're doing, and then there's a little bit of a snapback, or thinking that I need to rest because it is too much. And then I rest too much or I'm not motivated. And then I get understimulated and it contributes even more to this feeling of meh. It's a struggle. Oftentimes what happens is many HSPs prefer to be alone because we can control everything that goes on. We don't have to worry about competing needs or somebody else. And there is something that can be incredibly soothing about being alone because you get to be the master of your environment. When we're with others, there are factors that we can't control. And there are times when we get these unexpected gems and beautiful connections. And so how do we navigate? Do I need to be alone? Do I need to be with other people? I'm going to be talking about that in this episode because sometimes it can be really positive to be with other people and sometimes it can be really draining. My typical disclaimer, if you are depressed, if you are suicidal, if you are not functioning well, please reach out and get support from somebody. And I really struggle with this. How do I model having struggles, and when does it cross over into being serious that you need to get help? So I just want to make that disclaimer. Recently, I've been feeling pretty meh, not emotional at all, not happy, not sad, just very flat, not having a lot of feelings. I'm able to show up and participate in my life. I walk the dog 2 times a day and she gets a good walk. Meaning that I'm getting out, I'm being active, I'm seeing clients. But at the end of the day, when all that is done, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of room left for anything else. I have enough energy and capacity to manage what's going on, but not much outside of that. Steve and I were running errands the other day, and I got this really nice little inexpensive $7 sweatshirt from Costco that I loved. And they only had 1 or 2 colors left in my size. And I said, oh, I'd love to get some more. And we were out doing some errands. And he's like, do you want to run to Costco? It's like, ugh, I don't have the capacity for anything extra. So that's what I mean by, there are days when let's just go out and do stuff all day. This was not one of those days. So last Friday, by the time you hear this, it will be a while back. But my son, Josh, and his girlfriend went to Vegas for the weekend. And I love his dog, Zeke. So Steve and I drove, it's a little bit less than 4 hours round trip to go pick up Zeke and to bring him home. We've had to adjust it. As you know, Gracie, my blind senior dog who has seizures. I have a puppy who's almost 7 months old. And Zeke, who's about 2 years old, he's the biggest dog that we have. He's probably 60 pounds. He's sweet, but he's not mindful of Gracie. And so he will back up into her. He will knock into her. She can't see him coming. So this has basically been a week where we carry Gracie around the house. She rides more than she walks. So we had Zeke alone from Friday until Monday, and then Josh got here on Monday and he'll be here till Friday. So we have 3 dogs in the house, including my mom's dog makes 4, but basically 3. I decided I would sleep in my other son Daniel's room because when Zeke is here, sometimes it takes him a night or 2 to settle. Maisie wants to play with Zeke all the time. We have hardwood floors. The sound of the nails clicking on the floor can be really disruptive. So when I sleep in Daniel's bed, what I love is there's a window in there right above the bed and I can have the window open. We can't do that in our bedroom because of our neighbor. And maybe one day you'll get an episode to hear about my neighbor, but not today. I get to have the window open, which I love. However, on this side of the house is a house in the front, a house in the middle, and 4 units in the back and the walkway. So if people are coming and going in the middle of the night or after I'm in bed and they're talking, that wakes me up. So I keep Gracie beside me and the wall so that when the other 2 dogs jump on and off the bed in the middle of the night, she's protected and she won't get squished. Now, when I sleep in our bed with Maisie, she doesn't really get on the bed with us. Recently, the last 2 nights she's got on and she'll maybe stay for 20 minutes and then she gets off the bed and then she sleeps in her dog bed. But if I'm in Daniel's room, she'll often sleep with me for a while. Sometimes Zeke will get up and down off the bed and sleep with me. For some reason, when it's cold, I use a weighted blanket. I love the feeling of the dogs pressing up against me. I don't like people doing that when I sleep, but for the dogs, I really enjoy that sensation. And often I'll go to Daniel's room if I'm sick or if I'm not feeling well. There's a TV in there. So it's just another place where I can rest because we don't have a TV in our bedroom. Now, if it's just Zeke, we can leave the dog door open. But with Maisie, she goes out and barks. So I had to keep the dog door closed this night. But if the dogs got up in the middle of the night, I didn't know if they needed to go out. So I'd have to get up with them in the middle of the night. And then at 5 a.m., usually Steve gives Gracie her seizure medication. But if she's sleeping with me in the other room, then I get up to give Gracie her meds. What is the point of all this? It's just that we have a lot of adjustment, a lot of moving parts, disrupted sleep, more transitions going on. The other thing is that Zeke free feeds. He's not a food motivated dog. When we just had Gracie would maybe eat a little bit of his food, but wasn't that interested in it. But with Maisie, the puppy, she's very food motivated. So when Zeke is here, we can only put food down when we feed the dogs or somebody is supervising because Maisie will go and eat his food. So again, just for background, it's more moving parts. One more little piece of information, and I'll jump into the story, and I think it all ties together. A little bit of a trigger warning. I'm not going to give you very much information. Maisie is fine. I'm not going to say anything graphic. But I took her to Dog Beach 2 days in a row, and she was attacked. She didn't break the skin, didn't need to go to the vet, but it traumatized her. And the first day that she was attacked by this dog, then 2 dogs that were there together prey chased her. And it really traumatized her. It really traumatized me. Now you may be asking, why did you take her back the second day? I wasn't sure if she wanted to go back or not. And I'm going to do an episode in the future about the communication that I'm learning to use with her and using the buttons. But I did a little bit of work with her, and non-verbally she indicated that she wanted to go to the beach, she wanted to go to the car. She's resistant about these things sometimes. And then she got attacked a second day and it just didn't work out. I'll probably do an episode about what I'm doing around her communication. But again, this just sort of sets the stage for all of these other things that were going on and why I was more preoccupied with the dogs and everything. So as you know, I'm an avid paddler. However, I had this week where paddling just felt stupid to me. Can you relate to that? That you're really into something, then all of a sudden you're just like, meh, not so interested. Even though I've continued to look for a fiberglass kayak, which I'm not really sure that I'm responsible enough to own. I was paddling downtown at Seaport Village and I ran my kayak over this rock, and it was unintentional, but it created these 2 kind of scrolls of plastic under my boat. I mean, this is why you have a plastic boat so it doesn't get hurt. But had that been a fiberglass boat, I'd have to paddle differently. And I didn't even see the rock until I was on it. Normally, Brenda and I paddle on Monday. Brenda wasn't available, didn't paddle. Wednesday, I didn't go. Saturday, Brenda and I were supposed to paddle. And then she texted me and asked if I'd be disappointed if I didn't go. And to be honest with you, we had just picked up Zeke. I was planning to take him to the beach. We were just getting settled, and I was really relieved, and I was still feeling like paddling is stupid. This is where I love having honest communication because I told her I'm actually kind of relieved. And it would have been easy to go, no, it's fine, and to not share that information. But this is how we get intimacy and authenticity in our relationships. And it also put her at ease because the truth was, I was relieved that we weren't paddling. Then the next time that we paddled was Tuesday, which is yesterday. And I've been feeling really meh. And I was not looking forward to it. I ran into my mom in the morning. She's like, "Are you looking forward to paddling?" No. But what I know is to bring my body where it needs to go, regardless of if I'm excited, regardless of if I want to, and to just show up. And when I told Brenda how I was feeling, we got in our boats and we were on the water. She's like, "Are you happy?" I'm like, "No, not yet." And I'll talk a little bit more about this thing about feelings in a few minutes. When we paddled, I had that fear again about falling out of my kayak. I haven't had that in a really long time. It was probably a 4 out of 10, where 10 is very intense. So not incredibly intense. But when we have these fears, there's a way that we can use it as a tool. So I used it as a message. I need to be mindful when I'm in my kayak. I need to be mindful about how I'm using my paddles. I need to be mindful about where I'm looking while I'm paddling. Am I looking at Brenda and not paying attention? That for me, I used it as a call to action. Now, when you have fears that come up, do you use it as something that creates more tension and fear for you? Had I focused entirely on, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall out, I'm not safe, what am I going to do if I fall out? I would have expanded that narrative and emphasized the fear that I was having. It was there, and I used it as a call to action. When you have these fears that show up for you, do you tend to use it as information so that you can move on with what you need to do? Or do you get really stuck? If I don't go, I'm never going to go again. I'm going to get depressed. Things are going to be worse, where we do this catastrophic thinking. So going back to this thing of when we got on the water and Brenda said, "Are you happy now?" I don't know about you, but due to my history, it's a little bit of a sore spot when people, I feel like they try and control my feelings. There was a time when I would take vacations and my friend Laura, so I'm not going to swear, I'm going to use the word shirty instead of a word that doesn't have an R in it. We would go on vacation and I had somebody in my life that would always say, "I hope you have a magnificent, wonderful, amazing time." And then if it felt anything short of that, it felt like a failure. So Laura and I would joke and I would go on vacation and she'd say, "I hope you have a really shirty time." It sets the bar very low. And then anything that I experience on top of that is a plus. So I don't know if you've experienced that with people telling you that you should be happy, you shouldn't be so sad, receiving a lot of messages around how you should be feeling. I'm very resistant when that happens. So I told Brenda, "You can't push my feelings. You can't rush my feelings." And she gets it. We decided to paddle down the channel and poke our heads out into the ocean to see what the conditions were like. And it was really glassy and calm. So we decided to paddle south to the Ocean Beach Pier, if you're familiar with San Diego. It was really lovely. We stopped so I could take some video. We decided to continue south to Point Loma and Sunset Cliffs. And I was able to tell Brenda, sometimes it's really hard being me. And she knows a little bit about what goes on with me. And she made a comment that she's really glad that she's her because things don't sit with her. Things roll off of her back. It's much easier for her. And I started to think about this and what is it that I would want to change if I could change? Because sometimes it is hard being me. It's hard feeling meh. It's hard not having the ups and the downs sometimes, the feelings, the sad feelings, the happy feelings, to just feel like everything's kind of eh. And if I could change things, I think I'd want to be more spontaneous, more fun, more playful, let things go easier. My son, who will be 22 in a few days, is amazing at this. You may have a different take on this, but when we had Zeke, he and his girlfriend were in Vegas and they booked a hotel for one night. And in the morning, they were supposed to check out and then they did all of these activities and they forgot to check out. It worked out. They were leaving that night. They did go back to the hotel to take a nap, but it was a $400 nap because he didn't check out. And when he told me this story, he's just like, it was an expensive nap. For me, I would be just hanging on to the fact that I had spent $400 and couldn't spend the night and couldn't use it. How many of you would do that where you beat up on yourselves instead of going like, that was an expensive nap? When I was out in the ocean with Brenda paddling on the way back, we saw a pod of dolphins. And then I felt joy. There is something that is so magical about being on the water and seeing the dolphins. Also, when we see sea lions and seals, but the dolphins, for some reason, just are captivating to me. We paddled a total of 7.6 miles. On the way back, I got a little bit seasick, but when I went paddling in Dana Point, I don't know, months ago, I had to paddle for an hour and 20 minutes when I was seasick. So I just know that if I just keep paddling, it'll be fine. I'll get through it. We got back to where we launched from, and Brenda has 2 puppies that are a month younger than Maisie. So they're about 6 months old right now, and they are so sweet. It was a cool enough day, so she was able to safely leave them in her car, but the puppies were out playing before we launched. They were there when we got back. There's something just incredibly special about puppy energy and their excitement and their enthusiasm and watching them play. It was just lovely. And then I noticed that my mood had changed. Interesting. Normally on Wednesday mornings, I do an early morning paddle, but I know that it just doesn't work for me to paddle 2 days in a row. It's too hard on my body. But we were celebrating somebody's birthday today, the day that they paddled. I didn't go, but we meet for coffee in the parking lot afterwards. And the woman whose birthday it was really kind to me and lent me some very expensive carbon fiber paddles because when I first started paddling, I didn't have good paddles. And because of the pandemic, you just couldn't get any. And so it was very important for me to go and support her. What went on for me, though, is that wound of not enough. It doesn't matter if I'm there. I'm not really going to have a lot of fun. These people aren't really wired like I am. How often do you do this when there's an event and you don't have a strong, solid connection of what it's like or what's going to be there? And so we either have catastrophic thinking or we go into this like, it doesn't matter if I'm there. Doesn't matter if I show up. And again, this is something to be mindful of. And I've really been practicing this. A friend of mine recently told me that she was invited to have cocktails and she thought it was just with one person and she was very excited to go. And then she heard that it was cocktails with 40 people at this woman's home. That did not sound as fun. Again, no judgment on whether you go or not. But when she said 40 people, I thought, ugh, that doesn't sound like fun. But if she had gone, maybe there would be people there that she would meet. Maybe there'd be someone there that she knew that she'd love spending time with. And what happens is, when we don't keep our mind open to things, we often miss these beautiful connections. I really had a lovely time at coffee today, and I stayed for close to 2 hours. Another person has a little puppy they brought. Another person has their dog that they brought. I brought Maisie. Maisie did really well. Brenda and I took a little walk with the dog afterwards. It ended up being a really lovely experience. And had I gone like, I don't matter, it doesn't matter, and didn't go, I would have missed out on those gems. So I really encourage you to think about what you might get out of something, even when you think that you won't. I'm not talking about violating your boundaries, but I am talking about being open if you're open to doing that. So another example is a few weeks ago, one of our neighbors had a memorial. It was the year anniversary that her partner died. And the way that she wanted to commemorate her partner loved golf. Loved this golf course, got a hole-in-one on the 12th hole, and she invited a bunch of people to go and play a full 18 holes of golf. Now, if you don't play golf, it takes about 4 hours to play 18 holes. I don't play golf. So what it means is I sit in the golf cart and I ride around for 4 hours watching other people play golf. I don't enjoy watching sports. I don't enjoy watching people play golf. A couple years back, our whole family went. Josh's girlfriend was there. And so Josh's girlfriend and I sat in the cart and drove around and watched everybody play golf. That was good for once in my lifetime. It was also supposed to be 84 degrees that day. I really wanted to honor my neighbor. And so what I did is I know how long I'm good for. It would be at least 30 minutes driving there, 30 minutes driving home, 4 hours for playing golf, 5 hours and 84-degree temperature. Not my idea of a good time. I took a separate car. I had an idea of how long I'd be good for. And that was a good decision for me. That's good self-care. Now, what I didn't factor in is when I got there, there were quite a number of our neighbors there that I knew, and I'd kind of forgotten about that. So I enjoyed chatting with people. Again, that wasn't part of my I have to go and it's going to be 4 hours. I didn't factor in that there would be people there. There's also a couple that lives in our neighborhood. Our husbands golf together, and I enjoy spending time with her. So we were in the same group, so she and I had a chance to visit. The day ended up being much cooler than 84 degrees. The course was beautiful. There were tons of baby squirrels all over the course, which I really enjoyed looking at. I had asked my neighbor if she was going to stay for the full thing, and she said she was, but then about halfway through, she asked if I was still leaving, and we drove home together. What I needed to do was to make a mental note of all of the things that went right, because if I don't do that, the next time something like this comes up, not that there'll be a memorial where we play 18 holes of golf, but we don't make that mental note and we go ugh, I hate that. This is how we work with the challenges that we have, by making note of how things are different than we anticipate them being. It was interesting, too, that I noticed how many people, myself included, use the term loser, because I felt like I was a loser leaving when she was going to stay. And when she decided to go, I thought, oh, I'm not a loser. We're both leaving together. And I was just talking to another therapist who was talking about an event where it feels like she doesn't have the support there. And she had that thing of oh, I feel like such a loser. I just thought that was interesting. So it's really important to notice what is different than what you anticipated and make a conscious mental note. The other example of this is I have a friend whose partner, it was their partner's birthday and their partner wanted to go to the mall. And my friend is like, ugh, I hate the mall. But because it was her partner's birthday, she went. They ended up going into Williams-Sonoma. She's an avid cook. They met this chef there that was not pretentious. She really enjoyed, and it turned out that this chef was teaching this cooking class. So she and her partner signed up for this cooking class. They went. They had an amazing time. There were other couples there that they really enjoyed. She never realized that she and her partner liked to cook, and they've been married for a long time. Had she had that mindset of, ugh, I hate them all, I don't want to go, she would have missed out on these unexpected gems that she got. It's really a fine line. We know that certain things don't work for us, but we often will say no and we limit our experiences. I'm not asking you to violate your values, your boundaries. If you know that things drive you crazy and you can't tolerate them, then don't do them. But what I am asking you to do is, if you are feeling discontent in your life and you're wanting more, but you say no to everything, you limit the possibility of unexpected things happening. Do I do this? Do I not? You can ask yourself, are you satisfied in your life? Is there enough meaning? Are you feeling fulfilled, content, happy? Are you bored, lonely, listless? Are you craving more? Are you feeling crabby, envious, shut down? These are all indicators of where we're at. If you're totally content and satisfied and you're living your best life, then no need for you to push and do anything else. But if you're in a place where you're struggling and you're wanting more, you've got to be willing to do something different. Or if you're frustrated with the challenges that you have because your expectation is that you won't have challenges, that's going to create discontent. It's not an either or, but I have clients who tell me that they love being alone, but they miss the connection. But if you haven't had a lot of positive connection with others, then how can you even know that that exists? What I may do is an episode on expectations, disappointment, and anger, because so many times we expect things to be a certain way, and then when we tell our partners or friends about our feelings, instead of being met with compassion, like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. I didn't realize how my behavior impacted you. How can I change or be more sensitive to your needs? What would have been more helpful for you? We don't get that. And instead, we're met with things like, oh, you're so sensitive. You're so picky. You expect too much. We end up just shutting down and stop wanting or expecting and figure that we'll just do it on our own. back to expectations and disappointments. What are your dreams or your wishes? Are there things that you want to do or experience but you've given up? Are there ways that you want to celebrate occasions? Is there help that you want to receive but you expect to be let down so you don't ask for help? The uncertainty around new things can be stressful, so you just don't do things at all. So this is where working with someone can be really helpful because the other person can help you unpack this with objective eyes. You may have some blind spots. You may need some reframing about how we think about things. There are common themes that come up when I work with HSPs. And so, again, if you're wanting more and you're discontent, maybe you want to work with somebody, maybe not. Brenda was talking about wanting to travel and do things that are important to her, and we joked about 90 days of joy. And I have a plan to get together with a friend this Friday, and we were just going to visit. And I said, hey, can we do a craft project? So we were going to paint rocks, but as it turns out, we're going to be learning to play mahjong on Friday. I know it's a game. I don't even know anything about it. I'll let you know what I think. I'm focusing more on saying yes now, to be open to more options and experiences, knowing that I seem to do better when I have a little bit more stimulation than I have right now. When you have trauma, being an HSP, we often go to the worst case scenario. If you struggle with fear or moods, you don't have to stop doing all of the things that you enjoy or you think are stupid, like paddling, like I did. You can find people who will love and support you through all of your moods. It is possible. And Jen Perry and I have been talking, and she knows I've been feeling meh. She said she wants to be here for me in all of my moods. And we were exchanging information on Marco Polo. And when she said that, it just made me tearful. That flatness that I was feeling, it just softened it. And she shared some of her gremlins with me about how she's showing up while I'm struggling, which of course then allowed me to share about some of the gremlins that I'm having. I'm loving recording this podcast with her, and because it feels so yummy and good, I have a fear that it's not going to last. Not realistic. If it doesn't last, it's okay. I'll manage, but I was able to talk to her about that. That's what intimacy and vulnerability, being raw, open, and authentic, that's where you get that yummy connection. While I'm being vulnerable, I recorded a solo episode last week, but I wasn't so sure about it. I talked about a bunch of stuff. Amanda Weedmark is in the closed Facebook group, Unapologetically Sensitive. And in the past, I asked her to listen to an episode when I changed editors because she has a discriminating ear and she can hear the subtleties that I don't hear, literally. So I reached out to her and asked if she'd listen to this episode because I just felt like I was all over the place. And I didn't want you, the listener, at the end to go like, that was a waste of time. She listened to it and she gave me really helpful and specific feedback. Some of the parts that I had recorded worked and others needed more work, and I just decided to chuck the whole episode. But I'll tell you, it's been harder for me to come up with content. I feel like it's hard for me to remember what I want to talk about. I used to just sit down and talk. It was easy. Now I need to write out bullet points or more extensive notes so that I make sure that I talk about everything and my confidence is down a little bit. And I'm still recording solo episodes. And this circles back to what I started with. You can have fears, doubts, challenges with mood, anxiety, insecurity. It's about honoring that and doing what you need to do. That's how you move through things. You can't wait until you feel motivated or confident or whatever. Again, I'm not talking about not honoring where you're at. I would never ask you to violate what you're needing. But what I am asking you to think about is, where are you willing to push a little bit more? You can use it as an experiment and notice what happens. You can always re-choose at any point, unless you're skydiving and you've already jumped out of the plane. But if you're wanting more in your life, what are you willing to do for it? Growth sometimes means discomfort, venturing off into the unknown where we don't know what's going to happen, and that part of us that's fearful and wants things to be familiar and same and comfortable keeps us safe, but we miss out on growing and connection in these beautiful gems that I've shared with you. Again, are you imagining the worst and most uncomfortable type of growth, or are you imagining the possibilities of what's on the other side of the growth? I have thoughts of, "Ugh, here I am again feeling meh. What's wrong with me? What can I do differently? Why can't I change how I'm feeling?" I have those heavy thoughts. I also think I'm bored with paddling. I just can't stick with things. I get what I want or need, and then I move on to something else. Those are thoughts that come up for me. And I just know that I cycle through these. And if I just trust and ride it through, I go back to paddling. And if I decide I don't want to paddle, that's okay too. These are just thoughts, they aren't the truth. Are you able to name what's going on? Do you need some support? Many people are afraid that they'll become overwhelmed or stuck or depressed if they explore what's underneath those struggles. So sometimes people just aren't willing to go there and it keeps them in kind of a frozen place. I get it. I really get it. If anything you've heard resonates with you and you want to have more freedom and thrive, feel free to reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. I'm pretty full right now, but I always seem to have a spot or two open or some cancellations. I want you to live the life that you were meant to be. It can be hard being an HSP sometimes. Our trauma can make it hard being an HSP. All the yuck that's going on in the world right now is hard for our tender hearts. And we can find ways to manage, to thrive, to be creative, to have connection. You deserve to have those things. Finally, just a little announcement. I think I'm going to close the merchandise store that I have open. I'm really not thrilled with the quality of some of the products, especially the sweatshirts, how the print just fades off of them. I don't have anyone right now to manage the store. There are changes in inventory and prices and shipping. And so I think what I'm going to be doing is closing that down. So just to let you know, I think that's all I have. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are feeling some peace. It's a heavy, heavy time in the world right now. It just is. Please take care of your tender, precious little hearts. Find as much love and compassion and joy as you can. If you're struggling, it's okay to not be okay. If you need help or support, please reach out and get it. People are here for you. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.